I got a sock dollar for you. Have any of you ever tried to create a work of art without imagery?
I think that depends on what an image is, I guess, but I think I have written works of art or poems that don't really involve imagery because they're more of a performance of the voice. So the way that someone speaks could end up being like the motivating point of the poem rather than images. So, yes. No.
I don't really know how to answer this, but I think for a while there, I wanted to start writing either lyrics or poetry. So whenever I'd wake up, like first thing in the morning, I think I heard somebody say like you're pretty creative then or something. I would just do like a free write poem. So I didn't really have something in mind, just whatever came up. So I don't really know if that counts, but I didn't have anything in mind. I just kind of wrote whatever. So I didn't have something already in mind. So maybe.
Yeah, like again, no, I always have I'm always starting from some kind of strange image. And even if it's like an experience or a voice, there's still always an image that coincides for me personally. And like, the morning is a great time. This transitional phase from like dreaming to waking is very strange. And for me, there's always weird creatures or people. Yeah.
I wanted to ask about the collaborative piece at the beginning of the night. And I may have misheard, in which case this is, I'm really embarrassed, this is a stupid question. Did you describe it as shaman? And if so, could you tell me more about that?
Well, I think this goes back to Comparison's project. I personally am really inspired by her, and I think Natasha is too, because she's writing all these whole poems. And one of her big themes is the whole poem. But for Korean women, and I think a lot of women in other countries, the tradition of poetry actually comes from shamanic rituals. Like, they didn't really have a place in, I think, like literature for a long time. And what they would do is they would pass down their own poetry, like the women poetry, through like family shamans. Like if you're in a family of shamans, they would have these, I guess, like chants or something they would pass down. So I think since we were invoking her, it's a shamanic process. And we're also, you know, women.
I just have one thing.
You, sir.
The Chaucer derivation. Wouldn't it be interesting to get into a time machine and go 200 years in the future and see who writes something based on yours? And what would it be like?
I had a really strange dream about time travel like last week, but I wasn't thinking about my book or anything. Well, I think that Chaucer, you know, they call him the father of English poetry. So I think he will continue to be revisited, and I have no idea what it's going to look like in the future, and you know, whether or not my book will be around is definitely up for grabs. But Chaucer will, yeah. so I think it's something that'll happen again.
Sure.
Yeah.
I like it.
Dion, all right?
Yes.
How on earth, coming from New Hampshire, you end up doing a recording thing in New Hampshire?
Well, that's a long story. Okay, so I started.
New Hampshire, and end up with Noah to record?
Well,
You heard about us.
yeah, I heard Nick Dembski was here and Bonk was here. I'm like, I just need to be there. Things are happening. I've traveled down the East Coast. Okay, make a long story short, I had family that's in the area, so I have been to Racine like once or twice before. But it was only for like Thanksgiving or something like that. And so it's basically just through mutual friends, and then I trust them because you know, they know my family really well. So that's kind of how that happened. Why I decided to go down the East Coast loop and then go to New Mexico and then like venture up here and now, I don't know. But that's kind of how, through friends and family.
Is it true you're trying to raise funds for that recording right now? And if so, how can people contribute?
Well, that's a good answer. That's a good question. Yeah, I am raising funds right now. I don't really know how people can contribute. I'm kind of brainstorming, like fundraising for an album. So if you have any good fundraising ideas, then yeah, bounce that off me. But really what I think I'm just going to do is contact people that have enjoyed the music and express some interest. And because I'm independent, like everything's funded by me. And so I'll wipe my bank account, which isn't much, to try to put into it. But recording's just a lot. So I think I'm just going to ask individuals and friends and fans if they would want to support. So that's basically how.
Dan, I was just wondering what some of your musical influences have been.
Like artists,
Yeah,
or
artists.
I listen to like, what's that? I was gonna say I listen to a lot of Bob Dylan, like because like writing for me, like I didn't know, like that was another bear. Like I learned guitar, and then I was thinking like I never wrote because it's always like you're pretty much putting yourself out there. So if you do a song and somebody's like, oh, that's bad, it's just kind of like stomping in your heart. So I was always just the funny guy around the fire that could just do like improv songs, and that's kind of how I just started. But yeah, then I think I listened to a lot of like Bob Dylan, sort of like how he like structured verses, and then like the storytelling, Johnny Cash, like that's like storytelling. So I figured at least I can write a story. And so yeah, that's kind of how it went. Like the first few songs, like they just, and then I realized too, you're not gonna get any better unless you practice. And so I just kind of made it like a practicing thing, just write. So if you hear the first few songs, they're probably, they're not on the same level. Johnny Cash,
You have an element of like crooning to your voice, like kind of like Elvis Costello, or who's the guy that sounds like him from California? I can't remember his name, but
Bob Dylan.
yeah, I like it. It's a cool sound. It's very unique because it's just coming from you. I mean, obviously we're influenced by the artists, but yeah.
yeah.
And you have a real spiritual element to your music, which I like. Not spiritual as in religious, but spiritual as in, the heartbeat of life type thing.
Yeah. I mean, that's like what's sort of been the drive for the music anyway. And so it's just like questioning, and if you see on the other album, Life of Love, it's just a lot of, maybe even as Terry said, she wasn't sure, hopping around or trying to find. So a lot of it was like searching, and that's kind of what comes through like in the music. And yeah, and so then I just started realizing it's way better to write from an honest place. I'm sure you guys can agree, as opposed to like something to try to sound nice. I figured, I'm just gonna write like what's here, and then just however it sounds, that's okay. So.
This question for Francesca. You talked about the texts that influenced Chaucer, and of course a major treatment of the same myth after is Shakespeare's play Coitus and Cressida. Did you try to incorporate any of that feeling, or?
No, it was incorporated. Yeah. No, it was almost too much, and yeah, let's just put it that way. It would have been adding another layer onto Chaucer, and I think I had such an allegiance to Chaucer's poem that I couldn't quite get from there to Shakespeare, at least not for the book, yeah. But that reference to when the narrator saying she tried reading the comedies, that was definitely like when I was a Shakespeare thing. Yeah, but Pandros is much meaner.
It's an extremely dark play.
Yeah, in Shakespeare's play, and yeah, maybe next time.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Phil, the second day.